Ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in, and so is the Penguins 2025-2026 schedule. We're going to break it all down on this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
Your Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me across all social media platforms at synonym for wet. Joined as always by the one and only Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's account a follow on Twitter at LO_Penguins. You can also follow us on Instagram at LockedOn_Penguins. And of course, we appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Don't forget that we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. And if you follow us on YouTube, be sure to hit the notification button. That way you can be among the first to know when we drop our 3 times a week episodes, since we are in the off season. As you may know, we're trying to keep the Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, but we'll see what happens from here on out. And Hunter, before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the horrors may persist, but so do the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they will be playing hockey in 2025 and 2026. Their full regular season schedule was dropped today. And Hunter, for those who may not have seen the video that the team released on their social media channels introducing it, it is an awesome parody of the great HBO Max show, The Pit, which is based in Pittsburgh. A lot of it was filmed at Allegheny General Hospital, which is really, really cool. And I just got to say, it was a great piece of work. And you did an excellent job in that video as the doctor.
I can't stand that you keep putting this nonsense into the world here, especially on this podcast. I want people to comment on our YouTube page. You can send us a DM. Do I look like Joe Brand, Penguins radio play-by-play announcer? Please let me know, because I don't really think I see it, to be honest. Maybe with the hair, but that's really it. But I will say, yes, the Penguins did an outstanding job with that. Also, how about Michelle Crecchiolo, Pat? Can we get her an Emmy at this rate? She's been the team reporter for a very long time now. She absolutely kicked ass in that. So just want to shout her out for that as well. But as for the schedule, we knew they opened up the season against the New York Rangers. That was announced on Monday. We then saw today the home opener 2 days later against the New York Islanders. That is the only game against the Islanders in Pittsburgh this year. And then after that, they're going to play another New York team, the Rangers, once again, twice in their first 3 games. That one will be in Pittsburgh, and that will be Mike Sullivan's long-awaited return to Pittsburgh, where he will be getting a raucous ovation, a pretty big video tribute to him. So the Penguins, they will be getting that out of the way fairly quickly. So 2 of their first 3 games against the Rangers, the other one against the Islanders. They'll play 2 other games in Long Island a bit later on in the season. But that's the first thing that really stood out to me. And by the way, Pat, I actually asked the legend Bob Grove, when was the last time that they started the season playing 3 straight games against New York teams? That answer, 1998, 1999. Shout out to you, Bob Grove. Thank you for answering my question, because I had no idea when the last time that was. Another thing that really stood out to me, Pat, the March schedule. 17 games in 31 days, right around the trade deadline and right after. They are getting absolutely, what's the word I want to use here? Crushed, I think, by their schedule. And they play some damn good teams in the month of March. They play Vegas, they play, Carolina, they play Vegas again, Winnipeg, they play Colorado twice, Carolina, Dallas. Again, that is going to be a really tough slate of games or things. There's other non-playoff teams that they'll probably play in there as well. Like, for example, Detroit, Philadelphia are in there. I don't think they're going to be playoff teams this year, in my opinion, but they play a lot of bona fide contenders during that month. And it's going to be a pretty nice race to end the season, just because, again, 17 games in 31 days. That's quite a bit of hockey. And one more thing, 16 back-to-backs this season. I thought it was 15. Math is hard sometimes, especially for a journalism major, but 16 back-to-backs for the Penguins this upcoming season. Pat, what stood out to you about the schedule?
I like the fact that early on, they're getting the California road trip out of the way after they go through their little New York gauntlet to start the year where they start at MSG, they come home, play the Islanders and then the Rangers. That next week, they take off for California. They've got Anaheim, LA, San Jose in a row. Then they come home after that. I wanted to add on to your thing about March, though, because the Penguins aren't alone in this. This is a league-wide thing because remember, the NHL is going back to the Olympics in 2026. So when you get to February, the Penguins play their last game before the Olympic break on February 5th, and then they are off from NHL competition until February 26th when they play the Devils at home. Mm-hmm. So they're making up for those 2.5 weeks where the NHL is off for the Olympics. So pretty much every team is going to get crushed in March because they're making up for 2 weeks off for these guys to go to Italy for the Olympics. So while it seems like, oh my God, the Penguins are getting absolutely crushed, they're playing every other day. If you're a hockey fan, from about February 9th until March 31st, April 1st, you are going to be eating so good because you're going to have Olympic hockey. Then you're going to have the race to the Stanley Cup playoffs, the trade deadline, and everything else that goes with it. So that is going to be a really, really fun time to be a hockey fan. Another thing that is going to be really fun for us as Penguins fans is Sunday, November 16th. The Penguins will play their second game in Sweden against the Nashville Predators as part of the Global Series. But the game on Sunday the 16th is at 9 a.m. And if you really want to have fun that Sunday, the Steelers play the Bengals at Acrisure Stadium at 1 p.m. So it could be a really fun day for Pittsburgh sports come November. But looking at this schedule overall, I mean, I think the month that stands out to me the most outside of March is looking at December, because they will play a lot of teams that were either just in the playoffs or out of the playoffs. They start the month with the Flyers, then they play the Lightning, then they play Dallas, who obviously pretty good team. Then they've got Anaheim, Montreal, San Jose, Utah, all at home for a 5-game stretch. And then they finish that stretch with Edmonton, obviously one of the best teams going. And then they follow that up with Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Chicago, Carolina. So while we still on this show think that this is a team that's poised to miss the playoffs once again, if they find a little bit of momentum in December, I don't think they're suddenly going to become a team that makes the playoffs, but at the very least, they could make it interesting.
But you know what's funny? They always seem to have like this little mini run towards, the end of November into December. Even when they've missed the playoffs these last couple of years, they've gotten hot like around that time a little bit. Like they've been obviously a little bit better down the stretch these last couple of seasons as well, especially this year where, again, we all know what happened. Tristan Jarry got really hot. They were winning games over playoff teams and all that, but they still have, a decent history in the Crosby era of having some good Decembers. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the same here. And as to your earlier point, Pat, about, February to the end of March, Pat, why stop there? Into April, you have some good hockey games there. Boom, Stanley Cup playoffs start. And then you have 2 more great months of hockey until the Stanley Cup final ends. So honestly, if you want to say from early February all the way until mid to late June, every hockey fan is going to be eating during that time. There's a couple other things about the schedule that I want to get to in the second segment. But again, those were just some of the things that really stood out to me for this first segment when it comes to the schedule.
Yeah, we got a lot more to break down when it comes to the Penguins 25-26 schedule. We'll talk about that, as well as have a little bit of a laugh about the rest of the Penguins schedule release video, because if you haven't checked it out yet, it's on their website, it's on all their social media platforms. it is 10 out of 10. I don't think it's the best one, and we'll talk about that when we get back right after this. But first, we got to tell you about today's first sponsor, and that is Gametime. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever to get concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you have been dying to see. Live music, it should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that is where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets easier and faster than ever, and prices actually drop the closer you get to showtime, and you can save up to 60% with their killer last-minute deals. I've said it on the show plenty of times. I'm a big fan of Gametime. I've been using it for Pirates tickets. I used it for WWE tickets. I'm sure I'm going to use it this upcoming season for Penguins tickets. It's an elite app. I am 100% on board with Gametime. One of the best features is the panoramic seat view. Even for a nerd like me who's been all over PPG Paints Arena, I still like to know what my seat is going to look like when I get into the arena. And with Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. You're not hit with any of those surprise hidden fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes. And let's jump right back into it with the Penguins 25-26 schedule. The other thing that I wanted to say about this schedule as a whole, I said that you look at December, there's a lot of opportunity there for them. Same kind of deal goes for opening the season. You've got the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Rangers who... Rangers, I said it to Josh Yohe on Monday. I do think they're going to be better than they were last year. By how much, I'm not entirely sure. But they are a team that I don't look at them right now and say they are leagues better than the Pittsburgh Penguins. If they can get one or both of them against the Rangers, that would be fantastic. The Islanders, it's always a coin flip against them. We'll see what happens. Depends on what they play. But then you look at the rest of the month of October. They go to California. Anaheim, I do think they're pretty well improved. They did have the best year-over-year point total increase from 2 years ago to last year. So they are an improving team on the way up, but still beatable. LA is very good. San Jose, they're still not ready to take another step. And then you've got Vancouver, who that's a wild card. You never know what old Jimmy Rutherford's doing there. It could be a Stanley Cup contender. It could be a basement team. Who knows? Florida, obviously, they're the best of the best. Then you've got Columbus, St. Louis, Philadelphia, Minnesota. So realistically, there's a world where they could get off to, I don't want to say a hot start, but they could put themselves in position to stay in the mix and at least play interesting hockey after the first month of the season.
Yeah, I think maybe for the first month they could maybe, be 500 right around there at least to start. Again, the Islanders, we'll have to see for this upcoming season. I don't think they're a playoff team right now, even though Matthew Darche is an upgrade at GM over Lou Lamoriello. I know, obviously, they have Matthew Schaefer. They had a good draft. I like the Jonathan Drouin signing, but I still don't think they're a playoff team right now. The Rangers, very hit or miss. I can see them being bad. I can see them being better at making the playoffs. I don't think they're a bona fide contender. You said it, the Ducks, I don't think they're a playoff team yet, even though they're talking like they want to be one. The Kings, they're going to be a playoff team. The Sharks, they're still not there yet. Columbus, I do think is going to be fairly decent this year, but I still haven't liked their offseason. I'm not sure they're a playoff team yet, but those games against the Blue Jackets are always fun. Vancouver, those games against Canucks are always chaotic. Minnesota should be a playoff team. Philly, probably not. St. Louis, I would say so. Then, of course, you have the defending champs in the Florida Panthers. It's going to be a fun month to start the season where I kind of feel like it's a nice mix. Like you have some contenders you're playing against, but you're also playing against some teams that, could be right around you in the standings by the end of the season. And then also some teams that, could be fighting for wild card spots. So again, nice mix. Some wild card teams, some contenders, and then some teams that might be around you towards the end of the season. We'll just have to see what happens. Again, we're talking about the schedule on July 16th. There's still 3 months to go before we actually play meaningful hockey for the 25-26 season. And a lot of the offseason moves have still not happened yet. There's plenty of time for other stuff to happen. One thing, Pat, though, that I did want to bring up about this schedule, and I want to get your thoughts about this. Have you looked at 2 of the final 3 games of the schedule? Their final home game, once again, is against the Washington Capitals. And then their only trip to DC this upcoming season is right after. They'll play the Capitals in DC. So kind of like a home and home. Then they'll end the season against the St. Louis Blues. Very weird, by the way, ending the season against the Blues. That's just very random, I think. But that is super cool because if, and I mean if, this is it for Ovi and Gino, schedule makers might have cooked with that. But again, people, I stress if, because there's a chance that they could sign, 1-year contracts with their respective teams. But if this is it, that's a pretty cool end to the season, I got to admit.
That could be a really cool send-off for both. I'm extremely skeptical about Ovi. Kind of feels like he's himself putting the kibosh on, I'm done after this year. Obviously, we will see what happens. Gino, that remains a mystery. There's so many wild cards involved in that on what could happen with Malkin moving forward, but that is a really cool thing. The thing I wanted to add too about that is this is going to be a weirdly scheduled year. The NHL schedule makers make some baffling decisions every year, but with the Olympics this year and so many other events in the hockey world, whether it's the Global Series, Winter Classic, Stadium Series, and then just scheduling in NHL arenas, there's always going to be weird decisions. But this one specifically was going to be a very weird one because for 2 weeks, you just shut the league down. Nothing happens. They all go to the Olympics. Guys go on vacation. So this was going to be an odd one, regardless of what happens with the schedule. So let's get into this to close out the segment. The Penguins parody of the pit to announce the schedule. We got to go with something that was absolute. If you didn't hit pause for this part where they show the emergency room, quote unquote, board for all the teams that they showed in the video, go back and do that now because it is a gem. And Hunter, there was one you said right before we hit record, and I'm not going to steal your thunder on it. Tell us what it said.
It was kind of like in a, what is it, Pat, Google spreadsheet sort of thing where they have, the patient names, all the teams, reason for the visit at the hospital, and then comments. And this one with regards to the Toronto Maple Leafs was so freaking funny. So has the Maple Leafs reason for visit, psychosis and delirium. And then comments, keeps asking for cups, do not give. Just awesome. Like there's really nothing else I can say about that, Pat, other than that is awesome. And I hope it makes Leafs fans mad for a while because they get mad over literally anything. But there's other good comments in there too.
I got a really good laugh out of Boston. Reason for visit, abrasions, bruising, comments, bar fight, loud. I also had to laugh at Montreal. Reason for visit, just a bunch of question marks. French translator needed under comments. It was really good. And here's something I want to say about the Penguins video. It hit the right notes and it didn't try to do too much because we've seen this across all sports the last few years. Teams have been just doing way too much to announce their schedule. And I understand it. It's the social media world that we live in. You want to get clicks, you want to get attention, you want to go viral. I totally understand it. But there is a line where you're just trying to do too much and it looks a little ridiculous. For the Penguins, they capitalized on a moment where one of the most popular shows on TV right now is based in Pittsburgh, and they used it to their advantage, and it was a great effort. I will say, though, have you seen, Hunter, what Columbus did?
I have not. I was going to say the best one I have seen for any sport was the Tennessee Titans one a couple years ago, where they were asking these random fans on the street, like, oh, which team is this? Because it's on their schedule. And all these fans, these people, just these normal people, I should say, could not even name the teams. And it was just so funny. That's still the best one I've seen to this day. But what did the Blue Jackets do?
The Blue Jackets just did something completely out of left field, and it worked. They basically did a parody of Jackass, and they had random people in Blue Jackets and other team jerseys in public throwing body checks. They had people fighting in hockey jerseys in the middle of the street wearing Blue Jackets and other team jerseys. They had someone in a Florida jersey go put on a helmet in the locker room, but the helmet was filled with sand, so sand spilled all over them. It was a really, really good effort. I also really liked the New Jersey Devils. The Metro Division just decided to cook this year with schedule release videos. The Devils remade the Billy Madison dodgeball scene where a bunch of kids make fun of the New Jersey Devil and they try to throw a dodgeball at him. He catches it and then just starts pelting kids in Penguin shirts, Blue Jacket shirts. It was really well done. But I think on the whole, to put a bow on this, and I'll let you have any comments you have remaining for this segment, Hunter, Penguins did a really good job with this, and they deserve their kudos for it.
Yeah, whoever came up with this idea inside the organization, kudos to you. One of the best out there that I saw today. I had not seen the Blue Jackets one. That is also great after how you described it. But I'm excited. We're still 3 months away. There's still other moves that are probably going to be made during the offseason. I will say, Pat, I will kind of find it funny if one of or both Carlson and Raquel are not there for the Sweden games, just because they've been putting them on the promo marketing stuff and all that. So it would be a little funny if they're not there. We'll have to see. As of right now, though, they are still Penguins. They are expected to be there unless a trade happens this offseason. But going to be a crazy March. Fun start to the season. You have the California trip early on. You have the Western Canada trip a little bit later on in the season. And yeah, man, the end of the season too with both Washington games. That's going to be really cool if we potentially get that send off if Ovi and Malkin announce that this is their final year. But that's something that's not going to be announced for probably a while now, if at all. So those are my thoughts still on the schedule. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. You can send us DMs and all that. What do you think of the schedule? What are the moments that you're circling? All that good stuff. We want to hear from you guys.
Absolutely. So that is going to wrap up our middle segment. When we come back, we got a little bit of breaking news as we finished our episode on Monday with Josh Yohe. We will get into that when we come back right after this. But we got to tell you about our last sponsor of the day before we do that, and that is Monarch Money. Have you ever wished that managing your money felt just a little bit easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning for a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. In Monarch Money, it's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I am a big fan of this app. I've said it on the show before. The one-stop shop aspect of Monarch Money is huge for me. I'm not toggling between my banking app, my credit card accounts, a Google spreadsheet where I'm keeping it all together in a balance. It's all right there for me, and it's really helping me out. I highly recommend it. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Back here on the Wednesday edition of Locked On Penguins, I'm Patrick Damp, right alongside Hunter Hodes, and some surprising news out of the Penguins ECHL affiliate, the Wheeling Nailers. Head coach Derek Army is leaving the organization as he has been named an assistant coach of the Colorado Eagles, the Colorado Avalanche's AHL affiliate. So big congratulations to Army on getting the call to the AHL as an assistant coach. But I will say this, it does surprise me that he's leaving the Nailers to go to the Colorado Eagles as an assistant coach, because if there were ever a player and coach who had more love for the Wheeling Nailers, I don't know who they are. Army broke into the organization with the Nailers around the same time I did as a team employee. And he was not just a fan favorite. He was a staple in the community. He was a great player on the ice. He was one of their best players, especially when they made their run to the Kelly Cup final in 2016. He's the winningest coach now in the history of the organization. He had a record of 153, 137, and 19 in 309 games, made the playoffs 3 times. And they had their best regular season in 24-25 when they went 43, 25, and 4, second place in their division. This is a bit of a big loss for Wheeling because all the things I just said, plus it's July. They have got to get moving on finding a head coach for the upcoming season.
Yeah, they got to get through with this fairly quickly here, considering that we're already at mid-July. He had been with the Nailers for 5 seasons. He started as an assistant coach for the 2020-21 season began. He was promoted to interim head coach in April of 2021, and then he was made the full-time head coach shortly after that, and he had a great run since. Multiple playoff berths, you said it, Pat, 153 wins as the head coach of the Wheeling Nailers. He's joining Mark Letestu, former Penguin, by the way, after he was named the head coach of the Colorado Eagles earlier this month. He was always so good with development down there. Seemed like a great person, both on and off the ice, Pat. I know, again, you worked there when he was there, so I know you have nothing but great things to say about him as well. And you're right, like this is a major loss considering how good of a coach he was these last several seasons. And now they're going to have to somehow find a coach that can put up similar results. Like there's still talent down there, and they're still going to have good goaltending, I think, this upcoming season, especially when you look at the goalies in the system right now. But they're going to have to come up with a coach fairly quickly here because, again, we're already at mid-July. Like, I don't think this is a process that can take 4 to 5 to 6 weeks. It's probably going to be a process that takes 2 to 3, something like that. If it's 3 weeks, maybe it's even 1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah, this is a big move for Wheeling here. They have to get this right simply because, like you said, there is a lot of young talent in the Penguins organization now since Kyle Dubas has taken over and begun this rebuild, retool on the fly. And they're going to need guidance because there are going to be draft picks, prospects, you name it, who aren't going to go right to the NHL. There's going to be a lot of them who don't even go right to the AHL. They're going to need to be developed at all 3 levels. They're going to have to spend a year or 2 in the E, and then they'll have to spend a year or 2 in the A and hopefully make their way to the NHL. And to your point about how good Army was with some of these players, it's because he was extremely relatable and understands it. He was in the E, in the A for a long time. He had done this. He had been there, and he set a good example for a lot of these players because I can tell you with a lot of certainty and firsthand knowledge, there are players who get to the ECHL, and like everybody else, their goal is to get to the NHL, and that's totally understandable. That is why when you get to the pro level, your goal is to get to the highest level. But there are a lot of players who would look at the ECHL and go, I'm too good for this. I don't need to be here. I just got to bide my time until I get up to the next level, and then when I get up to the NHL. Army was not that. He was a very good player. I don't know, and I mean this with all due respect to Derek Army. I don't know if he was ever going to be an NHL player. He had a lot of talent. He did a lot of time as well in the AHL. But wherever he went, he was there. He was a good guy in the locker room. He was always willing to do community things. He was always willing to give fans the time of day. And that goes a long way. Obviously, when chuckleheads like you and I talk about the game, we're talking strictly about the game and everything surrounding it. We're not talking about all of the other things that happen in the game. And being a good professional goes a long way when you're a young player. If you can show that you can handle being a member of the community, being good to the fans, that helps your stock, especially if you're a good hockey player as well.
Right. And he's going to bring all these qualities now to the AHL. And, this is a nice promotion for him. Like, yeah, he did great work with Wheeling in the ECHL as head coach. Now he gets a chance to add to his resume being an assistant for an AHL squad with the Colorado Eagles under Mark Letestu. And say, Pat, he crushes it there. Maybe he gets an AHL head coaching job next. And then maybe he looks to, at some point down the line, does he get some looks from NHL teams as A, an assistant, or B, even a head coach? So while it does stink to lose him, considering everything he did for Wheeling, both on and off the ice, it was a natural promotion for him. It felt like it was only a matter of time before this was going to happen, considering what he was able to do at Wheeling these last several years.
For sure. So Penguins management, hockey ops, and the Red Board and their governor, Brian Komorowski, one of my good pals who I worked with when I was down there. All the best of luck to you. We're going to keep an eye on this, and we will provide updates on it as they become available. But that is going to do it for the Wednesday edition of Locked On Penguins. For Hunter Hodes, I'm Patrick Damp. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, and barring any breaking news, we will be back with a fresh episode, a Fan Take Friday episode for you on Friday.